Welcome, guys. We can't believe it's been an entire year since October 7th, and what a year it's been. Both possibly the worst year in my lifetime and the best year in our lifetime, the most eventful year for sure.
Yeah,
We've
definitely.
had war with Hamas, war with Hezbollah. This country's changed. I spent most of this year in the army.
Wow.
You spent a good portion of it. It's been, wow.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So it's a year to our first broadcast on TBN Israel of this war reporting. Yeah, true. Of the news reporting. It's crazy. And yeah, as you said, we started this war with some enemies, but now we have a lot more.
Why are we laughing about this?
Even the Houthis from Yemen that we didn't even know exist now are launching ballistic missiles at us and more. So I think it's a good time to stop and break down what happened this year.
Yeah.
And for those of you who are just joining us and not following on a regular basis, we are TBN Israel. And if you like to receive daily updates from what is happening in this war, please subscribe to our YouTube channel at TBN Israel. Okay? If you share, it will help us a lot to reach more people as well. So thank you so much for that. And Mati, October 7, 2023.
Can't believe it's been a year.
It was a Saturday morning.
It feels like it was a month ago, and it feels like it was 5 or 6 years ago at the same time.
Yeah, with the amount of things that happened in this year and the amount of emotions running throughout all the country. I would say it all started with fear, uncertainty, confusion. I think that's what I remember from the first day. And then for a long time, it was a lot of confusion, uncertainty, and not knowing what the future will hold, and not even what the next day will hold. And then it evolved into hope and patriotism, optimism, when the whole country united together to defend ourselves.
You know what I think? I say this hopefully. Our country's never going to be the same.
For sure.
After what happened last year. For better and for worse.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope we'll never be the same. I hope that all the lessons we've learned in the last 12 months, I'd even say this stronger, I pray that every lesson we've learned in the last 12 months sticks with us.
Yeah.
Personally, nationally, spiritually, prophetically, on every level. I hope that everything we've learned in the last 12 months sticks. I hope the lessons and the things that we steered away from the infighting and the politics and the squabbling over nonsense as a people, that stuff stays on the back burner for as long as it can possibly stay there, and that we can focus on rebuilding, coming out stronger, bigger, more cohesive as a nation than we ever did before.
Yeah.
And history shows us, from the Bible times through every format of written history, that only in a time of duress, only in a time of stress, only in a time of pain do people change, definitely groups of people. And Israel experienced from October 7th and onward pain on every level, and we're going to go break through that. But it's not just the military campaign, it's not just the hostages, it's shame on a national level, it's fear on a national level, it's the foundational shaking of our narrative as a people, how we talk about ourselves, how we think about ourselves. That's all been shaken, thrown in the air, and sort of been falling in pieces together since that happened.
Yeah.
I can say about myself, I'm not the same person I was 12 months ago on many, many different levels.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree. And I think that it's important to mention to our viewers so that they will understand the magnitude of October 7 to the people of Israel.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you compare, statistically, October 7 to the 9/11 attacks, you compare the number of the people that live in Israel compared to the number of the people that live in the United States, the October 7 attacks are at least 30 times bigger in terms of casualties, in terms of effect.
Casualties per capita.
Yeah, per capita.
Per capita,
exactly,
yeah.
That's the number.
Yeah.
So it affected basically every individual in the country. Like if you talk to 3 people, you know somebody that either was in the party.
Much worse. If only it was just a numbers game.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just about the numbers. 9/11 was an event that came and went. In the sense that it was an airstrike. There were no images of violence, brutality, rape, torture. None of that. No hostages in 9/11.
Yeah.
Israel went through October 7th and maybe we'll go back to that moment. We wake up on the morning of October 7th to a rocket barrage unparalleled in recent years by Hamas, then a few hours later joined by Hezbollah. And we wake up to images, as we're all in our bomb shelters, of Israeli civilians being murdered in the streets, of white pickup trucks full of armed terrorists,
with
driving
RPG,
with
rockets,
RPGs, machine guns, RPK machine guns,
huge weapons,
AKs, hand grenades, driving through Israeli cities in southern Israel and firing with machine guns on civilians driving their cars, walking the streets, breaking into homes. I had personal friends who their neighbors were murdered on that day, who their neighbors were pulled out of their houses and kidnapped on that day.
We have a colleague that is that her husband is still in captivity, a hostage in Gaza somewhere.
So that moment was a moment of trauma, a moment of fear, a moment of pain for our people, and a moment that signals the beginning of what's been a year-long conflict that turned into a war at this point between Israel, and I wouldn't call it Hamas, I'd say Israel and the allies of Iran.
Exactly.
Because it's not just Hamas, it's Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, and Iran directly.
And Iraqi militias and Palestinian terrorists in the West Bank and in the Gaza Strip. And I'm sure that more will come to join this party as time goes by, especially as we are striking Hezbollah and other terrorists. This is the situation. And I think that the hardest part for me in this war since it started was the response time of the IDF. I mean, we were sure that Hamas and the Palestinian terrorists in the Gaza Strip were afraid of us, that we were protected behind our tall fence with our tanks on the border, with our advanced weaponry that can shoot the other side from far away, with our sophisticated cameras and everything. And all that false security basically exploded in that moment. And we realized that there is no replacement for actual boots on the ground, and for people to really watch, take guard, and nothing replaces the soldiers, the infantry, the tanks, and the people that actually need to stand guard.
Yeah, and what it was also, to add to what you're saying, it was the catastrophic and public failure of Israel's defense strategy against Hamas in a very, very public way. It was a thesis that said that we, with technology and with perceived military superiority and with financial incentives, we can cause Hamas to change its way, to change its skin almost, from a terrorist organization bent on the destruction of the Jewish people to an organization that might want just to live life. And we've been proven strongly otherwise, that Hamas did not intend to change that. October 7th, October 8th, just to lay out the timeline, Israel is invaded by thousands of Hamas terrorists, the best of Hamas, that break through the border, pillage, murder, kill, and kidnap Israeli citizens and soldiers.
Take over military bases on the border.
Take over, destroy military bases, cut off military communication. From the communication box level, through the blimps that were observing the Gaza Strip, through the communication hubs that were controlling communication and command in the Gaza Strip, including killing high-ranking officers that govern that region. I mean, on a military level, catastrophic for the State of Israel. On a civilian level, absolutely catastrophic. On a generational level, of Israeli civilians being held captive, killed, murdered, without the Israeli army being able to come to their aid. And that's the first couple days. The Israeli army and civilian population respond very strongly. Both of us have seen the debriefs and met with the people that have went down to the Gaza Strip to fight. Both of us were called into reserves that very day. And Israel gears into hyper military mode, such as never happened since the Yom Kippur War. Calling in everyone into reserves.
Everyone that can walk, and some that
everyone in the military, in the military system. I don't want to name numbers, but military units were much bigger than they were usually in training.
People came from abroad in order to join. Some of them volunteering into the IDF to help in this situation. So that moment actually was one of the positive moments of this war. I think for me also to see such unity. I mean, people from different backgrounds that are from the left side of the political view to the right side, to Orthodox, to seculars, all uniting together in defending Israel, because I think everybody realized that we are fighting for our life.
Yes,
and the enemy doesn't care if you vote Netanyahu or if you vote someone else.
Yeah.
So they just wanted to kill everybody. And just to make a point of that, many of the communities adjacent to the Gaza Strip were actually super extreme left peace advocates with the Palestinians. And Hamas terrorists didn't care. And they slaughtered them, kidnapped them just the same.
Many of which worked in those communities.
Yes.
I think that's worth saying. The people were working in those communities. They had work visas in Israel.
Are you talking about the Palestinians?
The Palestinians that were murdering worked within those border communities in what is outside of the Gaza Strip. Many of them knew the people for years, sometimes 10, 20 years. Sometimes their parents even worked in the same places. And they were the ones who handed over intel for Hamas terrorists on how to kill more effectively.
Where are the weapons stored in the kibbutzim? What houses have children? What houses have elderly? What houses have people that can fight? So this sort of intel. What's the best routes to travel to the military bases to, successfully carry out the attacks?
I want to make one more comment, and then we can move on from this, on the negative of the beginning of this war, and that's the brutality and the violence. Never in our lifetime, never, and I've studied genocide, and I've studied, I don't want to say I love reading about it, but I'm intrigued and tickled academically into this field. Like I really track with the whole idea of like a violence throughout history. And what happened on October 7th, both in the extent of the brutality, both in the fact that it was used in an arbitrary fashion against children and women, pregnant women and infants in an extreme way, and to make everything worse, where it was televised to the world in live broadcast. Hamas terrorists worked together with international news, quote-unquote, outlets, such as Al Jazeera and others, working together with their terrorist journalists, I don't know what to call them.
Yeah, exactly.
We're documenting murders on live television and aiding them in documenting it. They put it on their Telegram channels. They used the phones of the deceased to call their families and show them the bodies. It was an intentional terrorism campaign, and it was something that has not happened in our lifetime. And from my recollection, this is worse than or as bad as when you think of the worst civil war in Africa, where people are being, bludgeoned to death, where people are being murdered, and raped and systematically burned, like that.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. Like if you're a podcast person and you listen to Dan Carlin Hardcore History, that kind of violence, violence of biblical magnitude. And the state of Israel, I'm going to end with the negativity there. The world is shocked. The people of Israel are shocked. We're mourning, but immediately there's a reflexive response of, we are all in this together. And like you said, everyone who's Israeli from around the world gets on a plane, many of them a military plane, flies back to Israel. Over 100,000 people in the first couple of weeks of the war. I think we hit almost 150,000. I don't know how many of them were reservists, but many of them were reservists. People from around the world who are on trips and holidays and work trips and stuff like that come back to join their reserves unit. And the IDF recruits over 300,000 people to go into reserves at one time. I believe the full number was over 350 at one point or another.
Yeah, and I think that the interesting part here is not just that the people joined the army and their units and volunteered, is that all the families back at home and everybody who wasn't part of the IDF also contributed.
Yeah.
So private companies, private individuals would come and cook food for us, would do barbecues for the units, would bring socks and underwear and lots of donuts and cakes. I remember the first few weeks of the war, it was harder to stay fit because of all the amount of baked stuff that we got in this war.
You were far away from the communities. I was in Judea and Samaria. I say this jokingly, of course. No one take this seriously. People would ask, how is it? And I would say in response, have you ever visited any of the monkey temples in Thailand? And they'd say, what? And I said, have you been, Gitai? I'm asking our producer back.
I haven't been to Thailand.
So the monkey temples and the different animal temples, people come and they feed them. They bring offerings of food. And I'd say that's what it felt like. I'd be with my soldiers on like a hilltop somewhere, like like it's windy and whatever. And
somebody comes with a jeep and brings you food.
Someone with a jeep comes, a little girl comes out, soldier, I baked you, officer, I baked you cookies. They're like, what are you going to tell her? I already had 15 today. So you eat another cookie because you don't have the heart to send her away. But to your point, yes, the civilian response in Israel was absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And just to refocus our conversation, because it's been a long day for both of us, we're talking today about a nation redefined, about the state of Israel being rebuilt, about the state of Israel being reshaped by this. And I opened with the statement of, I hope we keep the lessons that we've learned.
Yeah.
I hope we keep the spirit of unity. And you reminded me of that. Those first months of the war, people always ask me, how did the soldiers deal with being away from their family? I didn't see my family for, I think, 7 or 8 weeks in the beginning of the war at all. Yeah. And I had never been away from my kids for more than, I don't think maybe a week. For my youngest, I don't think even that in their lifetime. And it was, people were detached. I had a soldier who had trouble at home, and he wanted to go home. And the next day he comes back and he says, never mind, I don't want to go home. And I said, what happened? He's like, my wife scolded me. Essentially, she starts shouting at him on the phone. And she's not the shouting type of wife.
Don't dare come home.
She says these words. She says, "Don't you dare come back home while your brothers are still fighting." Wow. That was what she said to him. She said, "I'll take care of the home. You go back." And there was that spirit of unity, the spirit of togetherness, the spirit of a shared goal and destiny and external pressure that really breeds this, this strong, visceral, emotional response from people in Israel of we have to stick together. Yeah. And that feeling was, obviously it was a terrible time, but the feeling was something I've never felt in my life.
Yeah, completely. And I think that after that feeling, that was the beginning 2 weeks. After that feeling, what I remember in this process, in this war, was that suddenly, from being the victims, in the eyes of the world, Israel shifted and became the villains, became the bad guys in this situation. And
you felt that when you were in the army?
Yeah, I did, yes. From the situation of, the world is sympathizing with us, to a situation where Israel is using too much force, and how dare you try to get your hostages from the Gaza Strip.
That's after we went into the Gaza Strip.
Yeah, exactly. And do not, use force and all that.
Don't use excessive force.
And peace and all these statements,
Do you remember the term, we call for both sides to show restraint?
Yeah, exactly.
And I heard that. I was like, what are you talking about?
They still have 250 hostages. What a restraint.
What do you mean show restraint? Where, you came into our communities and killed our people and our children. What do you mean show restraint?
Yeah.
Now that you're mentioning it, I remember that.
But it was super annoying. To see that, especially while we were in the middle of nowhere, sleeping in tents and sleeping bags, training or defending the borders, and this is the situation in the international community. Complete disconnect from reality. Yeah. Okay, this was it was clear that this was, and I think, I tell you, Mati, for months, I think a few months took me, that I was just upset. I thought, it doesn't make sense. What people are stupid. This is not rational. And then the only thing that made me make sense of it is that this is a spiritual war.
100%.
And that this is not a rational thinking. This is just a spirit of deception. And it's a strong spirit because, we see university campus students chanting, death to Israel and go win this war, Hamas, and from the river to the sea, this lovely slogan. It was super upsetting to see that. And I think that was another key landmark in this war for me. And I think that we still have it today. I don't think it even became any softer with communities and international. Let's talk about the United Nations. You have President Erdogan comparing Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, to Adolf Hitler and Israel to the Nazis. So it looks like the spirit of deception and of lies is just amplifying and growing more and more. I don't know what's going to be the situation as this war progresses, but it becomes like our major front. Because militarily, we're winning. I mean, we just annihilated the leader of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, a few days ago, a week ago, and more countries are calling on Israel to stop the fighting, to reach an agreement, while we still have 100 hostages in the Gaza Strip. And they're also threatening with actual sanctions, not providing big bombs for Israel, for the IDF, for the military. And many people say, okay, so we don't need other countries, but it's not the case. We're a tiny country. We don't have factories that can manufacture all the parts for the planes, all the bombs, all the military equipment that we need. And we need our allies. And this is not just our war. This is what people, I think, don't understand. That all these evil organizations, once they end with Israel, they will go to Europe, to the United States. I mean, we've been seeing also terror acts in Europe recently. And this is just the beginning of all this Islamic ideology and radicalism in this world.
I don't think it's the beginning. I think this has been going on for a long time.
I think it's the next step of intensifying.
The extent to which people have been tone deaf was surprising.
Right?
I think that would be the way I would phrase it, in the sense that we always knew that anti-Semitism existed. We've known for many years that many European countries have trouble dealing with radical Islam. They have trouble with PC culture and stuff like that, dealing with with violent demonstrations by Muslim immigrants from other countries, because objectively they have a level of of compassion that's needed towards people that come from a war-stricken
country.
A war-torn country. But then at the same time, like, wait a minute, we have another problem. That's not the topic today. So we've known of these problems. We didn't expect the level of response to be so tone deaf and so skewed and so blind to what's really been happening here.
Exactly.
Where, at a certain point or another, we have, again, side notes. We're focusing on Israel here today, but people start claiming there was no sexual violence on October 7th, where there is absolutely overwhelming evidence that it did happen. Video footage and reports and witness testimonies
and freed hostages,
and suddenly all these these women rights organizations won't take the testimony of a woman who was brutally raped because there's no evidence. And wait a minute, just a minute ago this was exactly what we were working towards, is to trust the so
trust the women
with these kind of reports. Really twisted reality, really twisted on morality. I want to pause for a second and tell our viewers at home, one, this isn't a light topic. So thank you for sticking with us. Two, this hasn't been an easy year. It's been a year full of heavy topics. So thank you for everyone who's stuck with us and grown with us and supported us and cheered us on for this last 12 months. It means the world to us personally. And this is not like a vague us and the team kind of statement. I care about it. Yair cares about it. It's meant a lot to us.
And also our entire team behind the scenes. This is what keeps us going in the morning. I mean, it's not easy to wake up and do a report every day for 257 days or 350? 357 days. But who's counting? But it's a lot.
Someone is,
It's a lot of days, and the reason we do it is to give a counter to all these lies that the enemy is spreading. And sadly, the enemy is doing well, but we need your help, because if you're with us, then you want to hear the truth of what is happening in Israel. So we need your help in sharing these videos, in subscribing to this YouTube channel. It really helps us reach more people. So thank you so much for all your help. And I don't know, hopefully that next year will be a better year than this one, but I think that this will be a bit longer than just a year or 2 years.
Yeah, well, it's already been longer than we expected.
Yeah.
And I'd say I want to talk a bit about Israeli politics, but yes, we're expecting this to be longer and more painful. And we've lived out long wars in our lifetime. We forget, but when me and you were in high school, we were still in Lebanon. We spent 19 years fighting a attrition guerrilla war in southern Lebanon. Mm-hmm. We spent a good amount of time. It wasn't war. There was a short war of attrition before we were born. between Israel and Egypt on the Suez Canal. So again, we've lived out these kind of things as a country.
We had the Gulf War. I remember the Gulf War.
But the Gulf War,
a few rockets, and we were in bomb shelter as well. Saddam Hussein launched cruise missiles at us. We didn't have the Iron Dome anti-rocket defense system back then.
We had Patriot missiles back then.
Not as I don't think they're as accurate as what
they didn't work very well.
We have today.
From what I recall, they didn't work very well. From the cracks in my aunt's wall, I think they didn't really work very well. Anyway, back to our point. So we want to talk a bit, break down some of the topics of what's changed in our country since then. So we're going to talk a bit about, we talked about the society's response and the overwhelming, unity and togetherness that happened in the beginning of the war. But then I want to talk a bit about the politics, and I'm going to say politics/leadership, because I think the human study there is super interesting. And then we're going to talk a bit about the faith and the existential question here in the land. But politics, and I want to take us back, Yair, to the beginning of the war and to the skin tone of our leadership. Netanyahu, who it seems nothing can cause that man to blush. Netanyahu was ashen. His face was white for weeks. Herzi Halevi, our chief of staff, that man had his face was heavy with grief, with lack of sleep, with almost like a fearful facade to his face, and you almost didn't hear a strong voice within Israeli society, definitely on the leadership level, that came out and said everything's going to be okay. That came in and said, we got this. It was,
nobody had any idea what's happening.
No one knew what was happening, and the response to the press statements, at least in the beginning, were, it's been a terrible couple of days or a couple of weeks at this point. We're doing all the best we can, and we'll investigate later on.
We're identifying the situation better and learning from our mistakes and doing everything to retrieve our hostages.
Yeah, so we saw that really, really in a strong sense. And I want to say this because this was important for me personally. I know this is going to tick off a bunch of Americans. I'm still going to say it. President Biden. President Biden, who isn't always the most, how do I say this nicely? Sometimes he's not very clear in the way he communicates. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
He comes out, and I want to say it's the first week of the war.
Yeah, I think his speech at the beginning of the war.
Was that the third day or the fifth day, something like that? Anyway, it was the first week of the war. He comes out and he gives a speech. And again, this is at the time where Netanyahu's press conferences were
non-existent.
Non-existent. Where the military spokesperson, again, very weak statements. No projection of vision, no projection of hope. Very much survival mindset. And President Biden comes out and blows. He what is the expression? He floors the house, levels the house.
Drops the mic?
Well, that's something. I forget what the expression is. Anyway, he gives this passionate and powerful and charismatic speech in favor of the state of Israel, encouraging the people of Israel, standing beside the people of Israel as an American president. I remember hearing the speech. I remember being physically moved by the power of that speech, not just because of the person, but because of what it signified. It was American people and everyone who's supportive of Israel in that country making a statement for the state of Israel. That's the famous don't speech. Don't think of getting involved in this. He warned Hezbollah.
He warned Iran.
He warned Iran. He sent over one of the fleets, the fifth, the sixth, I forget.
Now, since then we have a lot more Americans here in this region.
Sent over a fleet to this region, scrambles the jets, everything that an ally can do. And I remember that moment. And I don't think it matters what political orientation you have, whether Republican or Democratic.
Exactly.
You need to recognize, I recognize this, I'm saying to American viewers, recognize the fact that regardless of what happened beforehand and what led to that moment, at that time of need, the U.S. stood strongly with the state of Israel, and it meant a whole lot to us, period, full stop.
Yeah, definitely. The time that everybody was against Israel, the world was filled with these lies, and the Israeli politicians and leadership was quiet because nobody knew what's going on. I also remember that speech. And since then we had back and forth and ups and downs with the American administration, especially with the entry of the ground forces into Rafah, the Gaza Strip. Okay, so for those of you who don't know what Rafah is the southernmost city in Gaza. It's a Palestinian city, and it's a border crossway between Egypt and the Gaza Strip. And from that location, which is the only location that Gaza has with any country other than Israel, most of the weapons of Hamas were smuggled into the Gaza Strip, and the IDF made it one of its military goals to take control of that city and of that border crossing between Egypt and Gaza in order to prevent the smuggling of weapons from Egypt and the Sinai Peninsula into the Gaza Strip. Okay, that was a big issue, and the United States wanted to make sure.
Not just Rafah, though.
What?
And I think, let's say we had 1 minute to explain everything that happened in this war.
Yeah.
My line to talk about the IDF's operations would be the IDF worked delicately and carefully. And I know that's an odd thing to say in light of the level of devastation in the Gaza Strip, which was necessary in light of what we were fighting over there. But think about it, like the IDF took, if you look back at like the last year, very carefully dealt with everything that involved civilian population.
Yeah.
So we took weeks to gather intel before going into the Gaza Strip to make sure we weren't hurting civilians. And every time there was a big movement, we would call for people to move and wait, and and risk.
It's actually very, very complex. The IDF basically separated the map of Gaza into areas and numbered them, and then before conducting a ground maneuver or an operation, in order to tackle Hamas terrorists in a certain box in this map, they would drop leaflets telling the population to move. They would also tell them where to move. They would also protect that route because Hamas terrorists would attack the Palestinians in order to prevent them from moving from that community because they want to use them as human shields.
Yeah.
And the IDF, so at the beginning, the IDF did that and moved the civilian population from the northern parts of the Gaza Strip into the southern parts. And then the IDF took over and destroyed Hamas installations, facilities, and leadership and terrorists in the northern parts of Gaza, moving all the people to the south. The majority was in Rafah. And then the IDF decided, okay, we need to deal with Rafah. So there was a lot of international concern about civilians getting harmed while the IDF is attacking terrorists in Rafah because the terrorists are also hiding behind Palestinians. Now, also, always.
Always, yeah.
Okay. And then the IDF was able to safely relocate these Palestinians, and I'm talking about millions, back north and providing safe zones for them with humanitarian aid facilities, conducting operations to dismantle the Hamas battalions in Rafah, taking control of the border while not harming the civilians, not causing a humanitarian crisis or a huge civilian crisis in this situation,
as much as was possible.
Of course, but I don't think that any army in the world ever did something like that. Just imagine.
We don't have to think about this. It's a very easy statement.
No, easily.
Yeah. There has been no modern case of warfare. Definitely not a biblical or
biblically for sure not.
Or post or a pre-modern case of warfare, where an army took such degrees or measures of concern to safeguard enemy civilian population at the cost of our own lives. The IDF, and I think this is important to say, the IDF has suffered a substantial amount of casualties in this war. I'm looking at the IDF website right now. Over 715 soldiers killed since October 7th. 715, including those killed on October 7th itself or kidnapped on October 7th.
715, wow.
Substantial amount of people. Second Lebanon War, 100 and...
I don't remember.
30 something. I'll look it up. Anyway, less than 200 soldiers, and that was a long and very, very violent conflict in southern Lebanon. Again, so substantial number of casualties, and part of that is us suffering casualties because we're treading lightly. It's very easy to just carpet bomb areas and then move in the forces.
It would have been a lot easier to just bomb entire neighborhoods that Hamas terrorists operate from and then move in with the ground forces and to sweep it up and then do the same to other places. But then the amount of civilian casualties in the Palestinian side will be severe.
Yeah.
So I think that also the IDF and both of us, Mati, know that the Palestinian people are also being taken hostage by Hamas in this conflict.
Yeah.
But sadly, it's not just that they're forcefully being taken hostage it's also that they've been brainwashed.
They're ideological hostages.
Exactly. So they believe that Hamas is their only hope for a better future, because that's what they've been taught in school systems, in their houses. And sadly, also all these school systems are funded by the United States through UNRWA and United Nations installations. So this is like super sad, which I don't know what's the solution, because if you have 16-year-olds that all their life learn that Israel is the enemy,
and the source of all their troubles,
and they're the reason for all their suffering, and because of them their parents are poor and their parents are dead, and they stole their lands and every kind of lie that you can believe in, then what kind of peace do you have in the future? How can you solve this situation? Tough question, but this is the situation. This is the enemy.
Tough questions that we don't have an answer for.
Yeah.
So what we've covered a lot. We talked about the politics, the leadership, the military campaign. Just to give some headlines, the IDF recruited an incredible number of reservists. I was in Judea and Samaria. You were up north and in the Gaza Strip. We, till this day, a year later, still have a substantial amount of soldiers within the Gaza Strip, keeping the peace, cleaning out, clearing out terrorists, underground tunnels, terrorists, and all that jazz. We have a lot of army up north, and we'll go to the northern situation in just a second. It's been a year of warfare, and much of it has been limited, and much of it, as you indicated, was affected by external pressure and the desire to sort of see where things are going. Because again, Israel's not just fighting against Hamas. Israel's fighting against Iran and everyone that it backs, and that's substantial.
Many people,
So it's a lot of people. So we've been treading lightly. The U.S. and other countries have been great allies in standing with us. I think it's worth mentioning also the geopolitical effect on the area, where the Houthis, who are the rebel group out of Yemen, who are sponsored, of course, by our good friends, the Iranians, the RGC.
Our good friend, President Kazakhstan.
Now that you remember the name, you'll use it every chance.
It's my favorite.
Pezeshkian, our new friend in Iran.
Until he's also part of the X's.
Well, we never know. Anyway, so everything is destabilized in the region, and trade is disrupted in the Arabian Sea and the Red Sea, and and it affects the economy of Egypt because of the Suez Canal. Ships are driving around the what is it called? The Gulf of Africa, the Horn of Africa, around the Horn of Africa, making global trade more expensive. Anyway, this has been a very disrupting series of events
for everybody,
for everyone
not
involved,
just for Israel,
even the global economy.
And
so again, we're a year into this. Let's head north from Hamas to Hezbollah. Hezbollah were our terrible neighbors from the north.
Well, you want to say lovely neighbors.
What kind of neighbors? The worst neighbors.
Definitely. If you're talking about terror tunnels in the Gaza Strip, they have terror highways. They used experts from North Korea, also really great, lovely regime there.
Our good friends in North Korea,
Definitely. In order to dig in mountains, like terror tunnels that are big enough to move trucks inside. And the IDF was able to uncover a few of these tunnels, and we know that they have a lot more. And since the beginning of this war, Hezbollah vowed and basically threatened Israel with 3,000 rockets, missiles, suicide drones, and ballistic missiles every day. That was the threat. And we know, according to our intelligence, that they have more than 150,000 rockets, missiles. At least they had a few weeks ago. But
we're going to do a podcast about that question.
Yeah, right.
Where are the Hezbollah rockets? But that's
that's so
I'm going to put a pin in that, and we'll have to pick it up on another time, because we've been wondering for the longest time. We keep getting hearing these threats again and again of all the accurate targets.
The Iron Dome anti-rocket defense system will not be able to defend us against 3,000 rockets every day from Hezbollah. And so far, they've been attacking us every day, but it reached hundreds, not thousands. And the majority of them were intercepted or landed in open areas in the northern communities of Israel, causing fires and damage to buildings and military installations.
So we said we're going up north. And Israel, and if I say this politely, and I will, Israel was sort of like sitting on, in Hebrew you say sitting on your hands, sort of like waiting for something to happen, treading lightly with Hezbollah, treading lightly with the Iranians, until recently.
Until a few, weeks ago?
Until a few weeks ago, where everything changed, and Israel started using explosive pagers, started bombing 1,500 targets in one 24-hour piece of
using airstrikes and precision,
substantial airstrikes,
guidance with intelligence information.
What is it? The cherry on top of the cake? Hassan Nasrallah bombing him 80 tons of explosive or 80 tons of bombs to destroy the complex he was in, killing Hassan Nasrallah, the arch. Oh, do you say arch or arc?
Arch.
Someone
enemy.
correct us in the notes.
The
arch terrorist.
We have Tomer here with us, so I don't think he can correct us correctly.
Tomer is a correspondent from the Houthis. So this this mega terrorist, arch or arch. I'm just kidding. Arch terrorist is killed by the Air Force. Then Israel a couple days ago does what? Bombs again in Yemen in the Hudaydah port.
Where Iran is sending more supplies and more weapons to the Houthis in order for them to keep launching attacks against Israel.
So the circle keeps growing.
Yeah.
It hasn't stopped. Israel's really stepped it up. And there's been a desire and a push from Israel, the U.S., several other players involved, to really try to bring some kind of ceasefire agreement to the table. Because let's say we're at the end of the conversation of where are we going.
What's the goal? Yeah. Okay, so we're going to bomb them.
Are we going to conquer Lebanon?
No. Nobody wants to.
No one wants to. Are we going to destroy every last Hamas, operative in the Gaza Strip?
No. And not every sympathizer, because it's, as you said, it's an ideology that is spread out throughout 2 million Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, and more also in Judea and Samaria.
Exactly. So what do?
So you need to reach some kind of an agreement for now, and to have a plan that will prevent this terrorist organization from rising up in the at least 7 years, 10 years, something to have like a medium range calm.
Yeah, and let's remind everyone, and I think this is where it gets interesting. First of all, to share, subscribe. That was a bit abrupt. I'll do that
again. Very subtle, Mati.
My brain is getting tired. So this is a good opportunity to ask anyone who's watching. First of all, thank you. 10 points because you stuck with us till now. We've been all over the place. A lot has happened last year. So we want to stop and ask you to do the following. Like, share, subscribe, and make a donation to help support the operations of TBN in Israel. We're creating content every day of the week, every week of the year, to tell the truth about what's happening here in this land. And we have a whole lot of more ideas, and we need your support to make that happen. I want to say, Yair, one, kudos to you and to our team, because this channel has grown incredibly in the last year. We were at
136 when we started this war.
I don't remember. Let's say 130-something thousand subscribers on the YouTube channel. And the YouTube channel, let's be honest, was not like a thing that we really put that much energy into.
Exactly.
And the YouTube channel has grown to almost 1 million subscribers. And our goal, we need you to help with this.
Yeah, definitely.
We need more viewers to help subscribe and share. Our goal is to hit 1 million viewers or subscribers on YouTube by the end of this year. And I think
it's possible.
It's very possible.
Well, I think it's possible if we have you guys helping us by sharing, subscribing, telling your friends. And if you've been with us so far, then you like this content. And the more you're with us, the more content we can provide, the better content we can create. And that's our goal here. And we enjoy doing it. We believe it's our mission, and it's something that Israel needs, and it's something that we like to do.
Yeah, and it's been fun for our team.
Yeah.
It's been fun, and I want to say it's even been therapeutic, because sometimes talking about things is the best way to sort of get over them, and it hasn't been an easy year.
No, listen, I think that this is one of the reasons that I've went through this war without a lot of, baggage in my head personally. Maybe I'm just talking to myself and I don't identify it on me, but I think that the reason that every day since this war started, we uploaded a video of sharing either personal experiences or reports from the ground helped me stay sane in crazy situations when bombs exploded a few meters away and where other soldiers lost their lives and where terrorists were threatening my family and your family and the state of Israel. Yeah. It's not a normal situation. And I think that somehow, definitely with the help of God, I mean, he used us in order to share these videos and the truth of what is happening, and it also blessed us personally.
I think that's a good place to take this, because we could talk for hours about everything that's happened. But to say, and I say this often, but a lot of smarter people and wiser people than me say this, is that these kind of moments in history don't come often. And we need to capitalize on this moment of emotional, spiritual, historical clarity to do something worthwhile as a people in this country. Mm-hmm. Not that we haven't been doing so far, but focus our energy, focus our thoughts, our prayers, our direction as a people. Use it for unity and creation, and not infighting or internal fighting,
destruction.
We don't need any more of that. This country's had enough of that through history. And we need unity. We need a sense of togetherness. We need a spiritual awakening in this country to understand the times that we live in. And people can take this whatever way they want. You can look at hardship as one of two things.
Opportunity to grow.
Exactly. Opportunity to grow, or destructive force and punishment in your life.
Yeah.
And if you look at it as a punishment in your life, it will be just that.
Exactly.
Punishment and a destructive force. You'll be the victim of the circumstances. Mm-hmm. I'm going to botch this statement. In Hebrew, you say you only control three things in your life. You control a man does not control anything but the action, the thought, and the speech that comes out of his mouth, which is an elaborate way to say is all you control is your response.
Yeah.
And we can take this moment as a people, we can take it as a group, and use it to grow. Use it to focus our energy. Use it to become a more spiritually in tune people, a nation that has a more clear sense of direction, a nation that focuses on the good and the virtuous and the positive versus the destructive. And I want to say something. Remember what happened before October 7th? We were on the cusp of the next wave of the Abraham Accords.
Yeah.
The biblical scripture talks about, the light to the nations and middle, a world.
Highway between Egypt to Damascus, to Israel,
Yeah, you talk about all these concepts, like where is it? And we were seeing the beginning of that. We were seeing in the Abraham Accords and other processes that were happening, that, that budding relationship. And we were on the cusp of normalizing with the Saudis, several other countries. I think that can come back again. I think that once we're decisively, clearly, strongly victorious against Hamas, Hezbollah, and by extension against the Iranians, at least for this phase, that opens the door for the next phase of peace, prosperity, trade, sharing ideas in this region.
Well, definitely. In the Middle East, people understand strength. This is the language. Yeah. So if you show strength against the enemies of Saudi Arabia, enemies of Jordan, of Egypt, and all the moderate Sunni Arab countries of this region, they will want to do trade, cooperation, and make agreements with the Jewish state, and that can open really an era of prosperity. So I'm actually very, positive about the future. We've had a terrible year, but from now it can only get better. So I think that in terms of the IDF, it seems like the IDF is at its best place strategically, operationally, as it's been since the establishment of the country of Israel. The intelligence divisions are on their game. If we were able to target all the leadership of Hezbollah, including Hassan Nasrallah, in airstrikes in 2 weeks since this war started. So I'm very confident that other parts of the country can also do great jobs in terms of the economy being better again, and our ability to create diplomatic agreements with our neighbors. And of course, all of this is possible, I think, because God is on our side, and we were able to survive all these enemies that attack us. So it's very encouraging, I think, to be an Israeli in these days. And I think that to all of you watching at home, this is historic times. This is times like times in the Bible that many countries try to destroy Israel. God comes and saves us. Okay, it's like all the stories of the Exodus of Egypt. It's the stories of wars in the Bible against Israel. So you are part of history. So I think it's a good time to decide on which side are you and who are you standing with.
It's a good time to wish all our viewers something else.
What?
Shana Tova.
Oh, this is a perfect time.
Let's not forget,
Yeah,
today
definitely.
is the first day of the year 5,785 to the Jewish calendar.
Did you know that by heart, or
No,
you
it's on
looked
my
it up?
As you were talking, I looked it up on my phone.
No, amazing. So really, Shana Tova to all of you. Really, if you're home, what we do here in Israel is we take an apple, dip it in honey, and it symbolizes
A sweet New Year.
New Year
Yeah.
for everybody. Okay, so this is Shana Tova and Tapuach B'Dvash to you, to your families, and to everybody. I don't know if we want to keep going and breaking down.
No, I think we've covered enough. There's, let's end on a positive note. We say in Hebrew in every New Year, we say, Tachel Shana u'birkotea. Let this year and its blessings begin.
Yeah.
So I think we end on that note.
Yeah.
We don't know what the future brings. We can just hope, pray, believe that it's going to be more good, more positive, more in an upward trend versus a negative trend. And whatever difficulties we come, we're a strong people, we're a believing people. God is with us, God is for us. Who can stand against us?
Yeah,
Clearly
definitely.
not Hamas, not Hezbollah. I'll end on just a quick HR comment. If people are looking for a job, have been looking on the Hezbollah LinkedIn, it seems like they have a lot of open positions right
Opening
now.
positions for young recruits. I wouldn't recommend because it's not a job for
It says
for a long term.
fast-paced family business. Just kidding. Don't apply.
No, do not. Please do not.
Anyway,
Yeah.
Yair, I think this is a good place to end. It's been an amazing year. Our team's done incredible work. It's been our pleasure and our privilege and our honor to share what's been happening here in this land to people around the world. It's been a unique year for Israeli people. A year of pain, a year of growth, a year of unity, a year of sacrifice.
Yeah.
And we pray, we believe that only good things are ahead for these people.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that being under all these threats makes us understand what's important in life.
Yeah.
Okay, I think, and that's the relationship with our close family, our close friends, and the relationship with God. So I think that with this note, it's time to say Shana Tova to all our viewers. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching TBN Israel. Every day, some of you, every day since this war started, we'll keep updating you on the situation on the ground in Israel. If you want to help us, please subscribe to this YouTube channel and share with your friends, and keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel.